very serious. I was born with cerebral palsy, and the doctor said I'd never live a normal life, that I'd never be able to sit up, that I'd never be able to stand, I'd walk. I was literally a vegetable. And they didn't even know I was blind until I was around 2 years old, because I had so many other health issues. My life is a miracle which I attribute to God's grace. I was born with about 2% vision, which doesn't sound much, and it wasn't much. And I lost that in my early teens, maybe right at the beginning of my teen years. For the sighted people here, I would like to describe briefly what a blind person sees, because everyone thinks they see black, and you don't see black, okay? If you can imagine seeing out your left ear, that's what I see out of my left eye, nothing. My right eye, I was born seeing light and dark and a few shapes, and when I lost my sight, my brain recreated what it thought should be there. You like watching a video, and the only reason I knew I couldn't see was when I would crash into things, and I realized I couldn't trust what my brain was telling me that my eyes could see. So my right eye is totally blind as well. It's just that I've got a very creative imagination. I was the first totally blind student in South Australia to do higher maths. I don't know what you call it here, but we would call it matriculation when I did it, the last year of high school. I did maths 1 and 2 and physics in Braille, and I was the first one in South Australia to do it. I started programming when I was about 10. By the time I was 16, I was programming in machine code, which was the native language of the computer. But when I began to program, there was no such thing as talking computers. There was no such thing as screen readers. Yeah. I had to write my program in Braille, type it in, hope it worked, and if it didn't, I'd have to start again because there was no editors. Life was hard. And I want to hark back to what Shah Khan said yesterday, that life is about consistency, and it's about one step at a time. I was the first totally blind student to do a Bachelor of Science majoring in computer science at the Flinders University of South Australia. And I'm still the only one to this day who has done it. Isn't that sad? Only one so far in South Australia to do a Bachelor of Science. And I tell you, it was really difficult, right? I had to send my notes off to get brailled, and it might take 8 weeks to come back. And when I got my notes back, I would say, what's this about? I don't remember it. That was like 8 weeks ago. But I managed, by God's grace, to graduate in the top 15% of students worldwide. And that earned me membership in the International Golden Key Honour Society. I met my precious wife, Mary Golingai, who was a native of Sabah at the Flinders University. And we came to Malaysia before our graduation ceremony. And can you believe it? My first job was in Kota Kinabalu as a programmer. You know, it was really, really funny. I walked into Dunko and I pretended I wasn't blind. My wife had to kind of lead me very, very unobtrusively, and I sat down and I started answering their questions, and it was obvious by the end of the interview that he knew I was blind. And I remember distinctly, he gave me a task. He said, all right, I'm going to give you a task. If you can solve it, you've got a job. And I know for a fact, because I spoke to him afterwards, that he did not expect me to fix the problem. He expected that I would not be able to do it, and he could wash his hands of me. But within 3 hours, I had fixed the problem. What could he do? Well, he did employ me, and we didn't have screen readers back then. Actually, we had a DOS screen reader. And the DOS screen reader that crashed every half an hour. You know what that means? You lose your work. It means the computer fails. We were forced to return to Australia when life here became too difficult. We were talking yesterday about infrastructure. Well, because of the attitudes of sighted people who thought I was a freak, looking at me thinking, wow, this is a weird guy. A white, blind person in Malaysia. I walked around without a cane to try and avoid attention. And I fell in a monsoon drain when trying to get off a bus. So we went back to Australia because it was just too difficult. And back in Adelaide, I got a job at the Royal Society for the Blind. And my job was to find solutions for blind people in the workplace and at school and at home. You see, blind people are resourceful. We will find a way if we have to. While I was at the Royal Society for the Blind, I was introduced to JAWS for Windows. It was a very new piece of software. It only worked a little bit and it was very buggy still, but it worked, unlike other screen readers of the day. And they sent me to the CSUN, California State University conference in 1999, and I got to meet a superhero of the technology world, Glenn Gordon. He's like God in the universe. He's the only one in the world that knows what he knows. And they asked me, would you work for us? And I said, yeah, if I can work from home in Australia. Maybe it was a naive thing for me to say, because remote working was unheard of, right? You know about it now with COVID. But back then it was unheard of. But the rest is history. You've heard a bit about what a screen reader is. And it wasn't built overnight. It was built a line at a time. Oh, you might want to know why I chose the acronym at the beginning. ADOT, right? Aptitude, Decision, Opportunity, Technology. Well, DOT Incorporated is the company I work for now. They've got a slogan. Building the world one dot at a time. A dot at a time, right? Aptitude, decision, opportunity, technology. So you know what a screen reader is. I worked on JAWS for Windows. I defined the screen reading industry. 1.5 million people at least use JAWS for Windows for independence, for education, for their job. I came up with the features that you all know and love and have about 12 patents. Now I just want to say a little note here. There's a difference between accessible and usable, okay? Accessible just means you've got labels on things. Usable means it's optimal to use, right? If you have to press a tab key 200 times to get to something, that might be accessible, but it's not usable. Back then, sighted people thought, well, blind people might need to use Microsoft Word, but they'll never need to use Excel. They'll never need to use PowerPoint. But I came up with creative ways to make the use of these applications not just possible, but optimal, so that the screen reader could tell the user, you're in this cell, and the heading of this cell is this, and the total of this column is this, without moving from the cell. So much of what I have implemented in the screen reading is define the industry. And this year I worked on the world's first multi-line braille display, as you saw yesterday. So I made JAWS support that. Outside of work, I've helped write replacement firmware for a bunch of amateur radios. You know what an amateur radio is? It enables a sighted person or anyone to talk to people around the world. Well, we wanted a radio that was accessible for blind people. So the menus talked, so you could hear the frequency you were typing in, or the frequency that you'd landed on when it found a channel that was not empty. So a few of my friends and I got together, sighted people as well, and we reverse engineered these Chinese radios, and we wrote the firmware to put on them that added the voice prompts. I've written or co-written 8 books. I've also sang on and played drums on and produced, that's mixed and mastered, 12 albums, 13 actually now. But it hasn't all been easy sailing. Living in a sighted world has been a challenge. I've always felt like I've had to really fight to stay ahead of the pack. As a father of 9, a husband of nearly 30 years, no extended family in Australia, life has been very difficult. Yes, I've had to learn to cook when my wife was managing the little ones, and learn to clean the house and look after babies, change diapers or nappies as we call them, teach my boys woodwork. Hey, one day I went to the shop with a friend and I bought a chainsaw, right? Chainsaw, cutting down trees. The people at the shop, they were horrified to find out that I was going to be using the chainsaw. Yes, blind people can do even chainsawing. And yes, I can use a circular saw. And I've got all 10 fingers still. Right? There are difficulties though. You know, supervising children in a playground. Very difficult, especially when there are no fences. Right? Well, look out for that swing. How can you judge these things? But for the past 8 years, I've lived on a farm, a 200-acre farm, surrounded by a forest in North Tasmania. I've learned to do fencing. I've learned to manage the water supply and fix it when it breaks down. I've learned to repair goat shed floors that are elevated 6 foot off the ground. Right? It's one thing to work in a controlled environment like a workshop, but it's much harder to take your tools out into the paddock and find where the fence needs to be fixed, and you drop your crowbar on the ground and then you've got to find where it is, and you put your hands in the cow pats and it's really bad, right? And I've learned to use a log splitter, manage a wood fire, right? Put it in wood when it's burning. So, you know, I've got lots of horror stories of getting lost at night and no one's around in the middle of the paddock when I've gone to check on a pump, and I've been wandering around trying to find my way back, and I've found a tiny little landmark, like a piece of broken pipe on the ground. It's like, oh, I remember that. I know where I am, and I were able to get back to the house. You know, our driveway is 800 meters long. So to go to the mailbox, you know, I can't get someone to lead me. Living in Tasmania for the past 8 years has been a real challenge. And life has only gotten harder. You know, sighted people, I want to tell you about the reason why I'm not at Vispero anymore, because I think it's blind people face challenges. We had a sighted CEO come in and she stopped listening to the blind community. She wouldn't listen to what the blind people wanted and needed. We know what we need in a screen reader. We wrote it from the ground up. She wanted to make money. And screen reading technology doesn't make money, right? Because you have to do things at cost that might not be bells and whistles, but might give someone a job. Well, she made it so hard, the chief software engineer resigned, Glenn Gordon. And then the National Federation of the Blind wrote to her and complained and said, look, the blind people are unhappy. What are you doing? What decisions are you making? And she wrote a very insincere letter back. And I wrote a letter to her. And I stood up for the blind community. And I said, the blind community need to be listened to, or you're going to lose all your employees and your customers. And she fired me. That was devastating because I poured my life into JAWS. But within 3 days, I had 3 other companies approach me and say, you know how hard it is to get a software engineer in this industry? How stupid is that? Right? She lost 80% of the knowledge of the company when Glenn and I left. So now I'm working for Dot, who appreciate the fact that I know what blind people need and I can help them as a company. I came to Malaysia earlier this year and I visited the Sabah Blind Society. Every time I come to Malaysia, I want to help blind people. I'm not here to make money, I'm here to make lives better. And I said to Dot Inc., I said, you've lent me a braille display to develop JAWS with. It's a prototype. What are you going to do with it when I send it back? You're just going to pull it apart and throw it away for spare parts? I said, why don't you donate it to Sabah Blind Society? It's a very usable device. And they said, the guy was a Christian, he said, yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Right? Just ask. I approached another company who made another multi-line display, and I won't say it because I don't know where this talk's going to get, but I said, look, Dot Inc. have donated their display. Would you please consider donating it? These people can't afford your display. They said no. Clearly, blind people are capable of huge things. They have great potential, but they need life skills, right? It's not just about technology. They need life skills, whether it's grooming, cleaning, cooking, managing money. Relationship skills, self-advocacy, educating sighted people about what we can and can't do. Learning to accept help when we can't do something. We need computer and technology skills. They're essential for communication and education and connecting with the outside world. We need braille skills. More fundamental than everything is the braille skills, and I'll come back to that in a sec. We need spatial awareness and visualization skills. They're critical. We live in a sighted world. We need mobility skills. We need to be able to learn how to get around, even on our own property. We need problem-solving skills. Blindness is not a mental illness, but it is something that we often have to find ways to get around. How do you teach a blind person how to do woodwork? Well, it's going to be different to the way you teach a sighted person, but you must do it. Unfortunately, at least in the West, the only skills which seem to be promoted these days are computer and technology skills, and all the rest seem to be going out the window. So sad. A few years ago, I wrote an article about which polarized the blind community, but it was about the decline of life skills amongst blind people in the Western world. When I was at school, we were taught to cook in a hot oven. We were taught to iron clothes with a hot iron. We were taught to use power tools safely. In the past few years, I heard of a school that that didn't even let students handle paper scissors because they might cut themselves. I heard of a 13-year-old blind student who couldn't even turn the shower on for themselves. I heard of parents of a blind boy who were horrified that I might suggest that the blind boy have a pocket knife, a multi-tool. I was given a great foundation because I attended a special school for the blind for the first part of my education and was then integrated into a fully sighted school only once I had acquired necessary life skills. I want to talk about this for a second. It's very important. The West has gone to the other extreme. We now have only early integration. Hardly any blind schools left, right? But before my time, it was only blind schools. No early integration. No integration at all. We need both, right? Because you need blind students to learn together so that they can key off of each other. They can compare to one another. They can learn in an environment where teachers actually can tailor the teaching to their needs. But once they have those skills, then they can be integrated and must be integrated into the sighted world, because one day they're going to have to face it. We can't coddle them in cotton. We must put them out there in the hard, big world. The West has also moved to another system where, particularly in Australia, where governments now, instead of paying organisations, they now give the funding to the individual. And I think that's also a knee-jerk reaction, a wrong emphasis. What we need is a hybrid model where you give some money to the organisations and some money to the individuals. Because if you give it all to the organisations, you have corruption, possibly. If you give it all to the individuals, you have no organisation to do Braille transcription, right? When I went back to Adelaide in 2023, when my mother passed away, I couldn't even get my eulogy that I prepared on my note taker Braille, because there was no more Braille facilities. You here in KL have a brilliant Braille production system, better than anything I've seen in Australia. Don't lose it. Braille seems to be going out of fashion, which is absolutely terrible. It would be like taking a pen from a sighted person, right? Braille literacy, I don't know how much we need to harp on about this, but it's so important. Other things that blind people need, memorization skills. You know, when I was 19, I was able to remember pi, 3.14159265358979323846, etc., to 200 decimal places. I was able to remember 300 Bible verses. I was able to remember my whole phone directory. But memorization is also a skill which is no longer being taught. And no, not all blind students will thrive. But if you don't, just like sighted students don't all thrive, right? But if you don't give them the necessary opportunities, if you don't give them the right technology, if you don't make the right decisions as parents, as individuals, as the blind individual, as policymakers, and you don't cultivate aptitude or ability, you won't get anywhere. But assuming Braille is no longer needed as a necessary skill is depriving students of the most basic tool in their toolbox of communication. You imagine me trying to do this presentation without Braille. You know, I have something in my ear. What was that? Oh, next point is this, right? You can't do it. And the reason why you can't do it is because when you listen and when you process, your brain is using the same side. Your brain's not very good at multitasking. Am I running out of time? Said it.
No message.
Sorry?
No.
All right. You imagine as a sighted person trying to do long division or trying to read a tabular bit of information. I've listened to audiobooks with a table, right? You know, you're listening across and like, I don't want to know it reading across. I want to know the one above this one and the one above, I want to be able to compare. You need to be able to have it in front of you. You need to be able to look all over the place, not linearly, but randomly, right? You need Braille. And Braille and audiobooks are fantastic for novels, but they're impossible for anything more complicated. They're impossible for maths. And if you don't teach Braille, you're relegating the blind student. You're assuming, you're making decisions for them that they will never be able to get a meaningful job. Right? If, on the other hand, you put the tabular data in Braille, you can understand it. You know, when I moved to Tasmania, and oh, by the way, Braille was not just about literacy. When I was growing up, I had a fantastic orientation and mobility instructor, and he would make Braille maps for me. And they were brilliant. Just the right amount of detail. Not too much, not too little. I moved to Tasmania, and I asked for a Braille map, and you know what they told me? No one has ever asked for one in the history of this state. I was horrified. Why? You see, the problem is, when sighted people make decisions like they don't need Braille, they don't need tactile maps, everyone uses GPS these days, right? Then you no longer have those things, but you also no longer have the skills to make those things. I then asked for a Braille map. I said, come on, find someone that can make me a Braille map. So they did, and it was ridiculous. The first map had too much on it. The second map had nothing on it of any use. The third map, they had the roads without the towns. Then they had the towns without the roads. So how do you put them together, right? It was just horrible. That's what happens when you lose skills, both not just blind people's skills, but teaching skills. We also do them a terrible disservice to assume that even if we teach them Braille, they should be able to get by with a little Braille display. Like I said yesterday, right? We need multiple lines. We need to be able to see things in context. As soon as the opportunity arises, go for it. Grab a multi-line display if your budget allows, right? Opportunities. So, we put all these things together. Aptitude, yes. Decisions, policy, parents, individual. Opportunities and technology. They all go together, and you cannot separate one from the other. You can't just have technology. You need the aptitude to use it. You need the opportunities. And I really want to thank Datuk for giving blind people in Malaysia so much opportunity in, with their massage businesses and things like that. But people might say, oh, you're just an anomaly. You're just extraordinary. Datuk's just extraordinary. Everyone loves motivational speakers, right? We love to hear Shah Khan's message yesterday. And like he said, there is a cost to it. There is a cost to it. We have to make right choices. We have to forego things. We have to work hard. We can't expect to be given everything on a plate. As I said when I started out, there was no screen reader. There was no talking computer. And now I'm a software engineer, have written a screen reader that enables millions of people to access computers. It's one dot at a time. It's one line at a time, line upon line. Here a little, there a little. As I said earlier, not every blind student will thrive, just like not every sighted student will thrive. But we don't have to be anomalous. Everyone can do more. Everyone has a talent in something. Recognize where your talents lie. They might not be in programming. They might be in something else. Maybe cooking, maybe sewing, maybe writing, maybe podcasting. Who knows what it is? You find out what your skill is. I can't tell you what it is. And let the people around you help you make wise choices. And you people who are making policy decisions, make wise decisions. Give opportunities, provide the technology, and then you have the recipe. We all love lists, don't we? Right? We love lists, but it's about implementing those lists. Aptitude, decision making, opportunities, technology, one dot at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. Alright, thank you, Mr. Joseph Stephen. I hope each of us can make use of all the brilliant points to better our service and treatment towards the blind and visually impaired community. Now I invite Dato' Haji Mahasan to lead our ID Incubator session. Please welcome.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum dan selamat pagi. Kita sampai ke agenda yang terakhir sebelum closing ceremony sebentar lagi. Saya mengambil keputusan untuk mengadakan sesi yang terakhir ni dalam bahasa Melayu. Tapi kita akan translate into English where necessary. So excuse me for our TAB friends. You have to learn Malay. If Joe can learn Malay, why can't you? Okay, Joe, Joseph datang ke Kuala Lumpur baru 2 hari. Tapi saya bagi dia beberapa language Malay punya perkataan dan dia belajar begitu pantas. Dia dah boleh ucap terima kasih. Thank you. Okay Joe, thank you very much for killing 50% of my time. You have put the time into good use dan saya harap semua yang mendengar idea dan pemikiran daripada Joseph tadi akan insaf betapa pentingnya early intervention. Ramai di kalangan kita menjadi buta akibat daripada keadaan sewaktu belum lahir, dalam kandungan ada complication, bila lahir pun ada complication, kemudian ramai juga yang involved dengan accident. Jadi banyak faktor. Dan akhir-akhir ini the latest I don't call it trend lah, tapi the latest main cause of blindness are from diabetes. Ini kita kena ubah lifestyle lah, untuk kita menjadi sihat dan tidak menyebabkan penglihatan kita terganggu. Baik, this ideas incubator, the idea of this activity is to give an opportunity to all audience, to all participants and all people in the hall to raise whatever issues. It's quite an open discussion. Joe has raised many important issues about early intervention, about education, importance of education for blind people, and how blind people should be given an opportunity, ADOT, aptitude, kena ada good aptitude yang betul, kena ada decision, keputusan yang betul, opportunities, itu penting juga. The society, the government, and the people in key position try your level best to give opportunity to disabled client in your jurisdiction so that they can contribute to the building of the nation. Orang kurang upaya atau PWD, persons with disabilities, adalah aset negara. Dia adalah aset negara sekiranya kita beri dia peluang. Saya sebagai peguam, klien saya kebanyakannya bukan orang buta, orang cerdik, orang society who are in need of legal service or legal protection, if you like. So I serve them. So without me, banyak lagi lawyers tentunya, tetapi at least I can also contribute to the legal protection of the civil society in Malaysia. So despite of my blindness, walaupun saya tidak dapat melihat, tetapi setelah saya diberi training yang mencukupi, kelayakan yang mencukupi, saya dapat berbakti kepada masyarakat dan negara. So itu yang kita nak. Kita nak supaya OKU ini jangan menjadi suatu pembaziran, jangan menjadi suatu yang just for the sake of living. Kita yang selalu tolong dia, kita yang selalu beri kepada dia, tidak. Sampai masanya bila dia dah diperkasakan, we have empowered the OKU, we have empowered the disabled people. Maaflah ada gangguan kat luar sikit. Tak apa, since this is casual punya discussion kan, tak apalah, dengan music pun boleh. Okay, so ini yang kita harapkan. So what I wish to see in the last session of our conference, an opportunity for all participants or everybody for that matter untuk raise issues, especially apa yang mereka hadapi di tempat kerja mereka atau di rumah mereka, whatever problem you face, as long as it is with regards to braille literacy and disability services, you can raise at this point. Ya, boleh cakap. Saya akan jemput semua saya akan beri ruang. Kita ada half an hour perwakilan ke apa ke untuk bercakap, to raise issues, dan kalau boleh kita bantu kawan-kawan kita ni yang ada isu yang tertunggak, dia tak dapat selesaikan masalah dia, kita bantu untuk menyelesaikan. So that's where the value of our conference is, to raise issues and to resolve. So bila balik at your own organisation or your office, at least you bring home some solutions to the problem that you face. Okay, let me outline kita punya demographic presence here. Kita ada, saya bahagikan kepada 10 kategori. Yang pertama ialah daripada Thai Association for the Blind. Ni kawan-kawan kita daripada Thailand. Thank you very much for coming, 4 of them. Another 14 in the chess tournament, chess competition next door. Ada 14 orang daripada Thailand sebelah sana, dan sini ada 4, so 18 orang daripada Thailand. Thank you. Big applause kepada kawan-kawan kita. So next year datang lagi ramai Make sure you datang in a bigger group. Alright, yang kedua kita ada library services. Kita ada satu je, duka cita. Sebelum ni kita ada beberapa library yang regular attendees at our conference. Sebelum ni kita ada library daripada Sabah, daripada Penang, dan beberapa tempat lagi. Tapi kali ni kita ada satu saja daripada Pahang, Yaman. Satu pun, at least we have the means of contributing to the development of library services. So daripada library ada 2 orang. Kemudian yang ketiga kita ada daripada SOSO. SOSO ni pun dia ni kali yang kedua dia datang. Kali ni 3 orang. SOSO is very important kepada especially OKU ke sesiapa sajalah yang bekerja, dia dilindungi dengan Social Security Organisation, Social Security, Perkeso lah dalam bahasa Malaysia, Perkeso. Saya rasa kita ada dalam ni pun kita contribute kepada Perkeso. KL Braille, I think we pay Perkeso 50,000 a year. Setahun, tiap bulan lebih kurang 3-4 ribu, dan setahun kita bayar hampir 50,000 kepada Perkeso. Jadi kalau Perkeso tak datang, saya duka cita lah. Tahun depan datang lagi Okey, yang keempat kita ada daripada Yayasan Pembangunan Negeri. In this case Johor lah ini pun kali yang kedua dia datang. So dia happy dengan performance kita tahun lepas. Tahun ni pun dia contribute dalam discussion. So I hope you will be our regular client, regular member, attendees for our conference. Okay, kemudian kita ada daripada Majlis Perbandaran atau City Council. Ini kita ada 4. Daripada 3 City Council, tapi kita ada 4 orang, orang perwakilan. Kemudian kita ada daripada Economic Development Corporation. Ini kita ada 2 orang. Elok juga kita bincang kerana isu ekonomi adalah isu penting kepada kesejahteraan OKU. Mungkin you don't deal direct with OKU, tetapi please just remember that any decision you take will have a direct and indirect effect on the OKU, kerana OKU juga adalah rakyat negara dan rakyat negeri, in your case Sarawak, ya. Kemudian kita ada Yayasan Pembangunan Islam Negeri Terengganu, kita ada seorang, mungkin dia boleh bercakap juga tentang yayasan di Terengganu. Kemudian kita ada 2 individu, seorang yang boleh bercakap secara authoritative mengenai entrepreneurship dan juga pengalaman dia sebagai orang yang baru hilang penglihatan. Dia dulu adalah seorang pensyarah, kemudian akibat daripada kejadian tertentu dia hilang penglihatan, tetapi dia bangun untuk meneruskan penghidupan dan dia mendidik anak 2 orang, which I really respect. Macam mana dia menghadapi masalah kehilangan penglihatan, ya. And the last but not least, kita punya daripada adik kita daripada University Sains Malaysia. Dia adalah pemimpin pelajar di sana dan dia blind. Dia doing well dalam tertiary education. Jadi ini adalah mereka yang ada dalam sebagai anggota kepada kita punya conference. Kemudian kategori yang kedua adalah facilitators. Kita ada daripada Australia, Joseph tadi. Kita ada juga Annelau daripada Index Company. Dia memang dah lama pengalaman tentang index printer, dan index printer is a major contributing factor dalam penyediaan buku-buku especially di sekolah. Dan KL Braille pun terhutang budi kepada index. Kemudian yang lain tu daripada staff KL Braille yang membantu dalam facilitating the conference. And last category ialah daripada chess players. Kita ada hampir 30 orang chess players. So dia akan join kita sebentar lagi selepas dia dah habis competition.